What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Trickstar deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck is an insane deck that I've included all sorts of spicy tech cards in this build for you guys. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like in your name description of a single video, getting a signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Trickstar Candina. This card is a definite 3-of in the deck and is actually the searcher for this build. Now when this card is normal summoned, you can add a Trickstar card from your deck to your hand, and each time your opponent activates a spell or trap card, inflict 200 points of damage to them immediately after it resolves, which is a pretty good effect because we're actually playing the burn version of this deck. We're then playing 3 copies of Trickstar Lycris. Lycris is a really cool 3-of in the deck and a card you always want to have on your side of the field because quick effect, you can reveal this card in your hand and then you can target a Trickstar monster that you control except another guy with this card and special summon this card from your hand if you return that monster back to the hand. And each time a card is added to your opponent's hand, inflict 200 points of damage to them for each, which is the main effect we're actually using in this deck to have some really awesome tech cards to combo with this card. The cool thing about this card is if you have multiple copies of Lycris in your hand, you can actually combo with this card and say a Candina, because you can normal summon out your copy of Candina, search out a copy of Lycris, and if you have 2 copies of this card in your hand, you can quick effect use one and then quick effect use the second one and actually get both of them on your side of the field for just bouncing one monster, which is really neat. We then play just a single copy of Trickstar Lilybell. Lilybell is just a good 1-of that's really good at special summoning itself to your side of the field. If this card is added to your hand except by drawing it, then you can special summon it from your hand, and you can only use effect this card once per turn, and this card can actually attack directly. And when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target one Trickstar monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand, which is a pretty good effect. We then play a single copy of Korribane. Korribane's just a good 1-of in this build. You can play 2, but I feel like 1 is totally fine for this particular build. If you control no monsters, or if all monsters you control are Trickstar monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, and then during the damage step, when your Trickstar monster battles an opponent's monster, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, and that monster you control gains attack equal to its original attack until the end of the turn, essentially giving it double attack, which is really an insane effect. We then play 3 copies of Droll. Droll is really insane in this deck and actually get rid of your opponent's entire hand with comboed cards like Trickstar Reincarnation, because you can basically get rid of your opponent's hand with Reincarnation and then activate Droll, and then once you do, you're pretty much going to make it so they can't draw if they've already searched that turn, which is just really insane. I love that about this card, and it's just a really old school Trickstar combo to combo your copies of Reincarnation and Droll together to rip your opponent's entire hand. I love that about this deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Terraforming. Terraforming is an extremely powerful 1-of in the deck to be able to get to our copy of Trickstar Lightstage. We then play a single copy of Card Destruction. Card Destruction is really good as a 1-of in the deck to be able to use your copy of Lycris as effect, because you're going to get rid of your opponent's entire hand. They're going to draw a bunch of cards, and then Lycris is going to go off to be able to do some burn damage, which is really cool. We then play 3 copies of Double Summon. Double Summon is a really cool 3-of in this deck to be able to combo with your copy of Candina and Lycris, because if you bounce a copy of Candina back to your hand off of Lycris as effect, you can actually use Lycris as effect to be able to special summon itself to your side of the field, and then since Candina is not a once per turn, you can then normal summon it again if you have double summon to be able to get another search, which is really cool. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. We really don't need the extra deck in this build, so this card is really good at just helping us draw additional cards so we can get more combo pieces to do more burn damage against the opponent so we can win the game, and it's really good to be able to draw to with this card. We then play 3 copies of Angel of Blue Tears. This card is really insane in the deck and can do quite a bit of burn damage. It'll let you target a face-up monster on the field, and its controller's opponent takes damage equal to the number of cards in their hand times 200. Then negate that target's effects until the end of this turn. And if an effect damage is inflicted except during the damage step, then you can banish this card from the graveyard and then set a normal trap card directly from your hand or deck. And if set, from the hand, it can be activated this turn, and you can only activate one of this card's effect per turn and only once that turn, but it's a really good effect to be able to work with all of the trap cards that we're playing in the deck, like our copies of our Trickstar Reincarnation, which is just absolutely crazy how well this card works with that card. We then play 3 copies of Trickstar Festival. Trickstar Festival is a definite 3 of in the deck because it lets you special summon 2 Trickstar tokens to your side of the field, which is a really good effect to help you link summon into cards like Holy Angel. And it also has the ability to Trickstar a monster that you control that was special summoned from the extra deck would be destroyed by battle or by card effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard instead, and you cannot normal or special summon monsters the turn you activate this card's effect, except for Trickstar monsters, which is not that big of a deal because that's all we're summoning anyways. We then play 3 copies of Light Stage. Light Stage is insane. I love this card in the deck. It does extra burn damage, and when it's activated, you can add a Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand, which is pretty much the Rhoda for the deck. It's just a really insane card as a 3 of in this build, and I'm so glad that this card is back at 3. We then play 3 copies of Dark Room of Nightmare. Dark Room of Nightmare is super good in the burn version of this deck because this card just helps you out so much. Because each time your opponent takes damage from a card effect, then except for Dark Room of Nightmare, you do 300 additional points of damage, which can stack to quite a lot because your 200 points of damage now become 500 points of damage, and that's a lot and really can burn your opponent super fast, and I love that about this card, and it helps out so much in this build. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to start off with 2 copies of Trap Trick. Trap Trick is a really good 2 in the deck to get the exact trap you need on your side of the field when you need it. We then play 2 copies of Disturbance Strategy. Disturbance Strategy is a really cool 2 in the deck to work with your copy of Trap Tricks, and the only reason I'm playing this card at 2 is because we're playing Trap Trick in the build. Usually you'd play 3, but I feel like 2 is perfectly fine for the other tech cards that I'm playing in the deck. As you know, that your opponent puts all their cards in their hand back into the deck and shuffles the deck, and then your opponent draws the same number of cards, which is a really insane effect to work with your copy of Lycris, because if your opponent has multiple cards in their hand, Lycris is going to go off and do multiple burn damage to your opponent, which is really cool to be able to combo with this card. We then play 2 copies of Present Card. Present Card is really neat as a 2 of in this build as well to work with your copy of Trap Trick, because your opponent discards their entire hand and then draws 5 cards, which is really cool to be able to use again with your copy of Lycris, because it can do about 1,000 points of burn damage off this card, and especially if your opponent has a key combo piece that's like a 1-of that they really need and they search it, you can use this card to disturb their strategy, which is really cool, and I love that about this card. We then play 3 copies of Trickstar Reincarnation. Trickstar Reincarnation is one of the best cards in the entire archetype. It's really insane because you banish your opponent's entire hand, and if you do, they draw the same number of cards, and you can also banish this card from the graveyard, and then target 1 Trickstar monster in your graveyard and special summon it. This card is super good as a 3-0 in the deck and can combo extremely well in this particular build to be able to use with your copy of Trap Trick, and there's multiple cards that search this card, and it's not even a once per turn. That is crazy that this card is not once per turn, and it's a definite 3-of in the build just to mill out your opponent and do burn damage. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with 3 copies of Holy Angel. Keep in mind, we are playing Extravagance, so there's going to be a lot of toolbox cards in here. You don't really go into the extra deck all that much except for your copy of Holy Angel, which is why I'm playing this card as a 3-of. This card is one of the best cards in the entire extra deck because it just takes any 2 Trickstar monsters, and Festival instantly makes this card because you're going to use those 2 Trickstar tokens on your side of the field to make this card just about every single time after you make your 2 copies of Bloom. But this card has the ability each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summoned to a zone that this card points to, inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent, and Trickstar monsters this card points to cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects, and if your opponent takes takes damage by a Trickstar monster's effect, this card gains attack equal to damage that they took until the end of the turn. This card is insanely powerful. I've gotten this card over 8,000 attack points, which is really cool about this card. You can get massive on your side of the field and help you close out games. It's a really, really cool 3-of in this build. We then play a single copy of Bella Madonna. Bella Madonna is really good 1-of in the deck. You rarely make it, but it's a really good option to be able to play in the deck. We then play 2 copies of Foxglove. Foxglove is really a neat option for this deck, because if this card is special, I mean, you can inflict inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent for each card that they control, which is a really good effect to be able to use with this card just to do additional burn damage. We then play 2 copies of Crimson Heart. This card is great because it helps you draw cards. I love this card as a 2-of in this particular build. The only downside is cards you kind of got to watch out for this card with your copy of Extravagance. It has the ability each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summon to a zone this card points to, you gain 200 life points, and then you can also discard a Trickstar card and both players draw a card, and if your life points were at least 2,000 or higher than your opponent's when this card was activated, you draw 2 instead, which is a pretty good effect. But again, you kind of got to watch out for Extravagance because Extravagance does not let you draw for the rest of the turn, which is a little bit of a downside. We then play a single copy of Black Cat Bat. Black Cat Bat is just a good option. This deck is a 1-of. It's a really cool card, and it just comes out every so often in certain situations. We then play 3 copies of Trickstar Bloom. Trickstar Bloom is a definite 3-of in the deck. This card helps you out so much to help you FTK the opponent, is if this card is link summoned, you can make your opponent draw a card, which is the main effect that we're going to be using on this card to be able to help them draw a card, and then use cards like your copies of Lycris and your copies of Reincarnation, because the copy of your Lycris is going to do burn damage, and then Reincarnation with more cards in their hand is going to make them banish their entire hand. And I've gotten it where you can actually banish about 7 cards from their hand, because if you activate Festival, you can actually put 2 of these on your side of the field and make your opponent draw 2, which is really neat. In the face of Trickstar monster this card points to is destroy a battle by card effect and inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent for each card in their hand, which is a pretty neat effect. We then play a single copy of Access Code. This is just a good option to be able to make in the deck. You can make it, you very rarely do, but it is an option just in case. 1 copy of Nightmare Unicorn, again, just another option in the deck. And then finally, a single copy of IP Masquerade. This card is also a pretty good option to be able to make every so often in the deck, just in case you need to go into Unicorn, or a copy of Access Code, because Access Code can actually do 2 banishes, which is really cool in this build, between light and dark. So, that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have not played a Trickstar burn build, you should definitely give this deck a try, because it's really interesting how this deck works and how easy it is to actually burn your opponent for 8k in this particular build. It's very easy to pull off. So, anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.